All right, it is 11:02. Today's August 17th, and we're going to call the regular electric utility board meeting to order. Oh, you're waiting to call to order. Okay. Anyone sign up for public comment? No emails either. All right. LPNL board is now recessing into executive session in accordance with 1 VTCA Government Code 551.086 on competitive matters of LPNL, 2 VTCA Government Code 551.071 seeking advice of and consultation with LPNL's attorneys on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with Chapter 551 of the Government Code and seeking advice of its attorneys about pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers. And 3 VTCA Government Code 551.074 to the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, and or duties of a public officer or employee and deliberate the appointment of a public officer or employee of the EUB. We're now, did you get one?
Chair, if you'll just hold, to do this right, we've really got to have a quorum in here at the council before we can.
Okay.
We've got to call our meeting. We haven't really handled that correctly in the past, so. The mayor. Okay, as soon as they hit the door,
Well, this is where I'll give reminders for anyone up here on the LPNL board. Please push your button if you'd like to speak so that Brandon can have it on audio for recording. So I will not do that when we come back into open. There's your friendly reminder. On that note, Greg will be absent today.
It's 11:05. I'll call the city council meeting to order. The city council will hold an executive session today for the purpose of consulting with the city staff regarding competitive matters of the public power utilities under section 551.086 of the Texas Government Code, pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers, and hold consultation with the attorney under section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, and personnel matters under section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. City council's recessed into executive session.
All right, it's 1:17 and the electric utility board is reconvening into open session.
It's 1:17. The city council has returned from executive session and the city council no longer has a quorum. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Masco. Reads to item 8, presentation and discussion from the Director of Utilities. Mr. McCullough.
Everybody hear me? Okay, so I will just hit a few highlights from the written material in the board packet. On page 25.
Hey, Mr. McCullough, I'm going to back up one item.
Okay.
Probably need to skip over number 7 there.
Oh, the minutes. Yeah.
Hey, Kevin. Everyone's had a chance to read the minutes from the electric utility board meeting on July 20th, 2021. There's no change or anything there. I entertain a motion. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor do so by raising your hand, saying aye. Aye. Opposed by the same. Carries 8-0. Mr. McCullough, thank you.
Good afternoon, board members, Mr. Chairman. So just go through a couple of highlights from the written material in the board packet, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that y'all might have about any of the other information there. But on page 25, some of the social media highlights, a lot of information there about how to prepare for summer heat. A lot of energy efficiency type information has been communicated. And then in the lower left-hand corner of that same page, you'll see the start, stop, and transfer utility service. We have a lot of tools available on our website that customers can use rather than having to call in and get on hold. So we're trying to push a lot of folks into those online tools. And I don't know if we have any statistics about how successful we've been in getting folks to do that, but they can actually apply for and receive new service without ever having to come in or talk to us. On page 29, I just wanted to highlight that we'd had a couple of slow months, probably a slow year in terms of commercial construction projects, but This last couple of months, starting at the beginning of July, we've had 11 new commercial projects identified, some of them pretty good sized. You'll see the Texas Tech Academic Science Building. That's going to be a big project. Slide North Townhomes, 2,400 KVA of load. So that'd be a big complex. So we're starting to see some pretty good commercial development come back after a little bit of a pause. I think that's the only highlights that I wanted to call to your attention, but happy to respond to any questions any of you may have about anything in the report or anything else.
Questions? Thank you, Mr. McCullough.
Okay, thank you.
Item 9, I believe that's going to be renewed today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all
Good
doing
afternoon.
well. All right, let me get you started in all the fun things that we did in the last month, and it was a lot of good stuff. So we'll start off with our current asset as we do normally. We do have a decrease in our pooled cash and cash equivalents. Again, since we joined ERCOT, we have paid hold harmless payments, and our purchase power costs are continuing to increase, and we are making payments on those. So our cash levels are just slightly bit lower than what we anticipated. On the other hand, our AR is increasing. That is due to a few factors that are coming in. Of course, we're entering into summer month. We have a higher PPRF rates, along with we haven't started any kind of cutoffs yet. So we just see a slighter increase in that, but we should see it come down to the normal level soon. One of the biggest changes that you would notice this time around under our capital assets, you would see all of our construction in progress money move into our transmission plant. Now that we've joined ERCOT, those projects are completed and moved into the transmission costs. So that is a big shift. You see a gigantic increase in transmission versus where we were in construction in progress. When we moved on to our next statement of liabilities, our accounts payables are slightly lower compared to where we were at the end of the year. That is just due to the timing and the different times the invoices are coming in and out. Another thing that always comes your attention is your notes payable. Our notes payable amount is continuing to show up here. We are in the process of bonding it out and repaying that. But as financial statements are 2 months prior, you'll just see that number getting higher one more time for next month's financial statement, and then we would pay that off. Another thing you would notice in our hold harmless payment, one of the substantial decrease of $24 million as we joined ERCOT in June, we have made that payment and we no longer are liable for that. So that is done. When we move on to our next statement, our statement of income statement, you would see net changes in our services. We have a little bit higher increase in our operating revenue. Again, as Joe has brought up, it's due to our under collection. And on the other side, the expenses, they are higher when you look at the purchase of fuel and power category. Again, natural gas prices are higher. We would just continue to see a little bit increase in there when we compare it to the prior years. Moving on to our statement of cash flow, our operating cash flow is showing in a negative 27 million, nothing to be alarmed of. We did make a $24 million payment, so it's just a timing of it. And of course, we see a negative impact of it immediately come up. Now, our financing activity, on the other hand, is on a positive side. Also, that is due to when we have received those fundings versus when we were building those projects. Same thing with our investment activities. They are showing increase in our cash flow over there and negativity as we move funds from restricted to unrestricted. And that takes care of all of our financial statements. Any questions on that?
Questions?
All right, well, we get to hang out for a little bit more.
Perfect.
If we can go on to the next item.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's talk about a bond and all the fun things we did with that. So I'll start you off with the little timeline that Andy and everybody had put together. Once we saw you last month versus here right now, we have done everything according to the timetable. Everything's went well. We went out to the market, bonds were priced, and now we are just waiting for the funds to be received. That would happen by the time we see you next month. So we did go out, price the bonds. And of course, you know, nothing has changed between then and now, but RBC Capital Market is our financial advisor. Our bond counsel have stayed the same. So is the group of underwriters. One thing that I received, or now we have clear number on, is the funds received. We will be receiving $266 million age 70. Now, our ratings are actually confirmed as well. At this point in time, these are confirmed rating versus what we presented you last time around. We do have A1, A+, and A+ from S&P. Everything went well. We all have positive outlook. These are all published on our website for anybody to go take a look at it in the detail if you would like. Now that we have a list of projects that we are receiving that fundings for. We have a 30 years list of projects that we are going to be utilizing those bonds for. And then again, we have listed out all the 20 years project that we will be utilizing that bond money for. Again, once to bring to your attention, the funding and exposition of this bond is for purchasing, our construction, improvement, renovating, our infrastructure, and keeping aside the bond reserves that we needed. Everything went as we had planned. All our ratings are confirmed at A1, A+, and A1 right now. Our proposed underwriters discount that finally ended up coming is at 1.2 million and $4.52 per bond. So we don't expect anything to change. In that, some of our final numbers I wanted to share with you. We have 313 million in total bonds funds that we will be receiving from this series 2021 issuance. You would also see, I really wanted to point out our note payoff. The final note payoff amount ended up being 245,708. That would be paid off as soon as the funds are released to us, and it won't even come to our accounts. It would be taken care of right there. Underwriters discount on this issuance came out to be 1.2 million, which is really, really good when you think about it. For the series of a $300 million bond, we was able to leverage that good rate. All intake from the final bonds right now, we are at 2.75% when we are finally done issuing everything. We don't anticipate any of these numbers to change. So we did really good out in the market. So talking about our schedule and where we would land from now, only thing we are expecting is funds to be released on 9/9. And at that point in time, all the parties would be paid off and we would have the remaining funds in our possession. So now in the midterm, what are we doing next? So if you allow me, I have one more presentation moving on to the next agenda item.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we are going to get one more extension on our notes purchase program, which we've enjoyed very, very well in the last few years. And I know Andy had a time to present this, so it went to the council's approval and that resolution was passed by the city. So I just wanted to share a couple of, new information with you. Nothing much has changed in the terms of the new notes purchase program we will be receiving, except the amount. We will now, this extension amount would be 60 million compared to what we had 300 million in previously. So we are extending it for 60 more million. And in this agreement, we do have an accordion clause, which allows us to actually request additional 15 million if we ever required. It's not that we have to, just a good thing to have. So it's there for us. It is from the same company. It's BOA, direct purchase. Extension is just now gone from 2021 to 2024 when we, get all this paid off with a new series of bond purchases. It is tax exempt. Nothing else has changed. The increment would be the same. We would request it every month as we need the fundings to come in, and we've enjoyed lower interest rates. So hopefully it would continue to provide us the same thing. So that's just the update on what we are doing in addition to the bonds for the next phase of the construction. Any questions in that?
Questions? Thank you,
All
Renee.
right, then.
Joe, item 12.
Good afternoon. Hey, I just wanted to update y'all a little bit on what we changed from the, as y'all know, y'all adopted the budget last month. And we did mention to y'all that our merit increase was subject to change, and it did change. The city approved a 4% increase instead of the 3% increase that we had in our budget. And what I did, I provided the pay scale. And I really like what the city did. They pretty much went with a higher increase for the lower paid employees. And then it escalated lower as we went down to the higher pay grade. So for example, you can see our initial pay grade, 105 to 116 are getting a 7% raise. and rate 117 through 121 will be 6% and so on. And so the top half of the pay structure at 139, 150 will only get a 3.25%. And all in all, it worked out at 4%. You know, the salaries of the lower employees, that 7% is offset or matches a 3.25% for the higher paid employees. So I really did like that structure. Overall, it was a $500,000 increase to us. And the $500,000 increase did include, you know, we had a CFO assistant director position, and it has been determined that we'll split that position up for next fiscal year, and we'll add a director of customer service position, and the other one will just remain a CFO position and not an assistant director position. The last change we had was we had a CIP 2021-069, a truck barn expansion. And what this project was, it's to store all our big inventory equipment that we have. Of course, the initial plan was to build a facility for them up on the hill, but after, you know, further determination, it was decided that we're going to move that facility to the Cook facility station. They already had some places that we could store some of our equipment. So it was just easier access for us to move it over there. So none of the funding changed on it. It's still the same amount requested. The only thing we did was change the scope and the name of the project to Cook facility from the truck barn expansion. So now it'll be over there at Cook Station versus Municipal Hill. And those are the only changes.
Questions there? All right, thanks, sir. Mr. Rose, item 13.
Okay, so I wanted to run through very quickly today, just an overview of the rulemaking process that's going on at the PUC. I will point out that David and Jenny and I were down at the Texas Public Power Association meeting this past month, where we had a chance to listen to the new commissioner at the PUC give a presentation on this and other topics, and got to speak with him a little bit. And he highlighted the fact that after a normal legislative session, there may be 3-4 kind of major rulemakings that are coming to the Public Utility Commission, where this year they've got 30 something. And all of these are asked to be done on an expedited path. So they're very busy in running through this, but we're working very closely with Texas Public Power Association and our fellow municipal utilities in terms of putting in our comments as they go through this rulemaking, and also working with them in terms of the tracking. Jenny has done a lot of work with them in terms of putting in things that may or may not affect us. But at this point in time, it's very preliminary to say where any of these are going to land. So just wanted to run through just kind of some top line information, just so you can see what they're kind of working on right now. During the last session, obviously ERCOT reform as it relates to us was very important, and Senate Bill 3 was really the main kind of omnibus bill that brought a lot of these reforms over the line. But there were a lot of other bills that contributed. So just running through really quickly, in terms of rulemakings, they're taking a look at an investigation regarding Winter Storm Uri, a review of the wholesale plans for retail electric customers. Those are the variable rates where you saw some customers that were given access to wholesale plans that really hit them hard during the storm. They're looking at coordination between electric utilities and gas companies. And they're looking at winterization standards in terms of implementing SB3, but also directives from the governor's letter to the PUC about changes that can be made. They're looking at the emergency operation plans, again, taking a lot from the governor's letter and from SB3, looking at the scarcity pricing mechanism, which was a big topic during a lot of the legislative hearings, looking at critical loads, standards and processes, and reviewing the communications coming from the electric market. Looking at, so a petition was put in terms of disconnects and emergency relief. This doesn't affect MOUs, but it's been a hot topic. ERCOT governance, this is rulemaking about implementing SB2. That was just the general changing of the governance structure of ERCOT. AARP put in a petition in terms of modifying the deferred payment plans in terms of trying to reduce deposits on payment plans and allowing more time for customers to pay off payment plans. They're looking at reviewing the power outage criteria This is taking a look at, there was the idea of when the storm hit, there wasn't kind of a statewide alert system that sent out information. So you had different utilities that were communicating in different ways. This is trying to set up that statewide outage alert system. Like some of y'all may have received an alert last night on your phone locally about an incident with a police officer. Same sort of deal, trying to find a way that in this event, there can be messages pushed out to a larger audience. And then just a few more to highlight, looking at the penalties for those that don't weatherize. You know, I will point out that, you know, for us here at home, our system held up very well during the storm. Our generation units, our facilities here, has a lot to do with the fact that we put a lot of investment into that infrastructure over the last couple of years, but our system performed very well in terms of weatherization and otherwise. But looking at those that do not adhere to that and the violations that come with it, reviewing natural gas facilities, looking at the wholesale power market design. You know, the indication that we got from the commissioner, and obviously what we saw coming out of the session, is that there's not, at least right now, a movement to make a wholesale change to that market. But we'll take a look at the rulemaking and see how that plays out. And then the last one is taking a look at the Electric Supply Chain Security and Mapping Committee. That was a new committee that was put together in terms of reviewing the supply chain for storms like this proactively going forward. Additional rulemakings will take place on the implementation of SB 3, looking at reviewing emergency pricing, price caps, market participant qualifications, among other items. But again, right now, we're just watching this as it begins. As we've discussed before, I just mentioned House Bill 4492 because that was one that was important to us and really clearly highlighted, you know, the fact that we were not in the ERCOT system. But you know, that's something that they're going to be looking at. That's got a shorter lead time, so we're watching that very closely to see how they address the various different items in 4492. So plan on coming back in the coming months with kind of a more detailed description of rulemakings that directly affect us. But right now, just wanted to give you a very quick overview of what they're looking at, so you can kind of see that these big bills and the accompanying bills that were passed, they're now trying to figure out how to implement those and how they apply to different utilities. So watching that very closely. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to attempt to answer. I've also got Jenny to help me as she's been working pretty closely in this matter as well.
Questions? All right, thanks, sir. Bring us to item 14, Mr. McCullough.
Wanted to give the board a report about the activities around the strategy of joining the retail market. That's been something we've been moving towards for quite some time. So just a high level summary of some of the activities is we have had a consultant study the impacts of transitioning to retail choice. That study has been, well, we'll talk about that more here in a minute. And then early termination of the partial requirements contract, you're familiar with that. ERCOT study requirements. What kind of studies do you need in order to transition the remainder of your load into ERCOT? Public Utility Commission approval of the remaining load move to ERCOT. Market transaction manager implementation, distribution infrastructure that we'll need to transition the customers. Understanding provider of last resort options and considerations. And then ultimately governing body deliberations and action on the opt-in decision. So we're going to talk about all of that. So consultant study, we had we've had Navigant working on this for quite some time. At the September board meeting, and that says September 21st, I understand that that may not be the date of the board meeting, but we're going to present a summary of their findings to you at the September board meeting. That will be something that we can deliver, provide to the public as well. This is a high level summary of their findings. We're we talked about early termination. It really, the reason that's important is it eliminates the contractual commitment to procure capacity and energy, which we won't need if we join the retail market because we won't be responsible for power supply any longer. ERCOT study requirements we've had conversations with ERCOT. Our consultant has had conversations with ERCOT about what studies do we need in order to satisfy y'all that we can move the 30% of our load into ERCOT. We've got that boiled down to maybe not a whole lot of studies, but I think they're going to start with what's called a steady state study. It's basically a load flow study that looks at kind of the normal conditions. And then depending on the results of that study, ERCOT may require additional studies as well. There's dynamic studies and other things like that that they may want us to run, which we can do, but we're going to try to start with the simple stuff and then get to the more complex if they need it. And that's in progress right now. In terms of PUC approving this, we wanted to wait until we have the ERCOT studies complete. We've got ERCOT's buy-off on moving the rest of our load over. And then we will file the case with the PUC. I think it's good and another reason to wait for a while before we file this case, because I know they're just so busy right now on all the post-winter storm activities that Matt was telling you about. This probably would not get their attention if we were to file it in the short term, but I think everybody agrees it's best to get ERCOT's happy first, and then we can file the case at the PUC. So we anticipate that can happen in early 2022. And we don't think this is going to be a long drawn out case like the original case was back in 2016. Market Transaction Manager. This is the system that communicates with our billing system and transmits the metering information, the customer information to ERCOT, and handles the transactions where a customer is switching from one retail electric provider to another retail electric provider. And we have staff working on negotiating an agreement right now for that Market Transaction Manager, and we'll be bringing that to the board once those agreements are finalized. Distribution infrastructure, our engineering department is working hard on this right now, and we've got some consulting engineers working on substation projects, distribution projects that are necessary to move the remaining load over. We'll be bringing equipment purchase projects to you as they become ready. I think we've already brought some that y'all have approved, but we'll be bringing some others in the next few months. Understanding provider of last resort options. This is a topic that I know we've talked about before. We have a request for information document on the street right now. We send it to everybody that might have an interest in serving as a poller if the governing bodies decide for us to join the retail market. And responses to that RFI are due August 19th. And so we will have more information on that at the September board meeting after we've had a chance to digest it, see what they come back with. And then finally, governing body deliberations and taking action, up or down action on the opt-in decision. My thoughts are that the board would want to deliberate this and talk about it in open session in September and again in October, and then take action on it potentially in October if that's the board's pleasure. I know Jenny has started working on the resolution, draft resolution. She'll be finalizing that and refining it. This will also have to go to the city council. As you know, we have both bodies will have to approve it. But that's kind of the plan that I have in my mind. I'd be happy to entertain other ideas, but I know we've got a couple of long-term board members that'll be going off the board in November, so it would be good to take advantage of their wisdom when this decision comes before the board.
Questions or comments? Ms. Stafford?
Do we have enough engineers? Remember, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, there was a young man that was brought on board, but that was an issue at one time, having enough engineers. Are we okay in that category, David?
We brought on Luke Miller. He's our new engineering manager. His first task was to try to recruit the vacant engineering positions on staff. And I think we haven't had a high level of success yet, but I know we're still working on it. And I think we have been able to hire some interns, engineering interns. And we have, over the last few years, we've transitioned interns to full-time employees. And so that's worked out well for us previously. And it's an opportunity that we want to pursue. We're still working on it.
Other questions or comments? Sorry, Mr. Bowen, you were on mute. Did you say you can't have enough engineers?
Like an engineer.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCullough.
Thank you.
All right, item 15 is a special, says discuss and take possible minute action for date, time, location of possible special meeting in August of 2021 if needed. That was going to be via Zoom. We are going to need to schedule that, our, I don't know if it's the charter rules or which rules it is, City of Lubbock rules, et cetera, but the board rules. So even more important, the board rules. September, we have some conflicts there that we need to discuss. October, and then generally our November and December meetings get moved around just due to holidays and people travel and everything else. So on the August, there's no date there yet. I want everyone to look at their calendars and see what would work just it'll be our last Zoom meeting per the governor's executive orders there that we can no longer have those. So we'll do it by Zoom, and it'll just be to set out the final September, October, November and December meetings for us, just because there are holidays and travel, et cetera. So what dates work in August for us to hold that Zoom meeting? Does anyone have any conflicts or any dates that are better than others? And staff, what about you all?
Mr. Chairman, I think we'll work around the board schedule. Just tell us what date you want to do it.
What does Tuesday, the 31st work?
Yes.
It'll be Zoom, so you'll be able to. Yes. Okay. So we'll schedule for Tuesday. It shouldn't take more than, I want to think 30 minutes, less than that. What time was the best for you guys? 11 o'clock regular? 11? Let's do 11 on the August 3rd. Well, someone needs to propose and take action on this. I guess we'll need to propose that. Ms. Stafford?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we have a called Zoom meeting at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, August 31st.
Have a motion in a second.
I'll second.
Have a second. Mr. Davis, all those in favor, just by raising your hand, saying aye. Aye. Opposed by the same? That is approved. Thank you. Do come with that meeting. Just know your calendar for those next 4 months so we can make sure we're all good there. Consent agenda. We have items 16 through 19. If there's no further discussion on any of those, I will entertain a motion for items 16 through 19.
So moved.
Have a motion by Eddie, a second by Don. All those in favor do so by raising your hand, saying aye. Aye. Opposed by the same. Carries 8-0. Previous to item 20, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.